guys. Welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Lori Grow. And she does a lot of coaching and advising with her clients around relationship issues, codependency and boundaries, private practice consulting. And so for the audience, it's a great way to learn about her, what she does, and if you're in any of these transitions, thinking about changing careers or any of the other specialties, Lori is the one to have on the show. So I'm happy to welcome Lori to the show. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Christopher. I'm very excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, I know. So I know we connected earlier, and so for the audience, just kind of briefly talk about what you do, what you specialize in, how you got there, and how the audience can benefit from your expertise.
Right. So I'll try to give you a short version because I can go on and on and on about my origin story. But in a nutshell, I was working as a therapist for a bigger organization, realized that I was completely overworked. I'm sure a lot of your audience is feeling the same way. And so I decided to start my own private practice. And from there, without really totally fully knowing it, I was creating the opposite situation that I came from. Meaning we have about 15 therapists at Shoreside Therapies, and my goal is for them to work as little as possible, be well taken care of, be fed, go for walks, all of those things. My next goal is to have a massage chair put in. I want my therapist to be taken care of. So Shoreside is basically a place where you can go in and have somebody that specializes in your area. So all of our therapists have, I wouldn't say narrow, but they all specialize in something. So if you're going in to see a therapist, it can be very helpful to find somebody that specializes in the particular issue you're going through or your profession. So I know, Christopher, we talked a little bit about, I work with a lot of physicians, and there's a commonality that I see quite often, and it's similar to what I was just talking about, stressed, overworked. The other thing I hear often is that there isn't anyone listening up top. So it's a lot of, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And so partly what I do is work with physicians to help them see what they might be missing themselves, right? There are a lot of skills that transfer over to a lot of different things. And even if you are staying fully in that position as a physician, you can get your needs met in a different way, meaning you can find other things that you're passionate about, whether it's volunteering, whether it's finding consulting work, and feel like you are where you're supposed to be, which is in control of your own life. So hopefully that answered that.
And that's a wonderful introduction. And you said something funnier that but one thing is a lot of the audience are doctors, and they come in with these very naive notions like they're going to change the world, and they realize once they graduate they're just part of a system, and they're just like and like and everybody up top is just saying yeah, yes, yes, and then they're just giving platitudes and nothing's ever getting done. So which kind of brings me to this kind of kicking the conversation off is relationship dynamics and communication. And what are common patterns you see in relationships that lead to recurring conflicts, and especially in the workplace, or you can talk about in relationships, partnerships. How do you, because a lot of doctors, they get into these codependent employer-employee relationships, or even in their marriages as well. So talk about these common patterns.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there are common patterns for sure. And one of the things I see, kind of piggybacking off of what I was saying earlier, with feeling like you don't have much control or say so in your life. That is a big shift for somebody that's working in the medical field, that is looked at by patients as like all knowing, so there is that vibe you get sometimes. And then at the same time, you don't actually have a ton of control. So when you get home, that is a common thing I hear of, nobody's listening to me at home either, so that is one. I do also see the way that people are talking to each other becomes problematic. So this is really often when somebody is in a real concrete type job where they're talking to somebody and saying, this is what needs to happen, this is what needs to happen. And they get home and that is the same way they're talking to their spouse. And most spouses don't want to be talked that way. It's like, hey, sweetie, can you do this? Versus like, do this, can you do that? And blah, blah, blah. And so I do help a lot with finding those transitions. So if somebody is coming home and realizing that that first interaction isn't great, we talk about what a plan could be. What is a plan so that when you walk in the door, you can say, hi, sweetie, how was your day? The other thing I see is the overwhelming stress, especially with physicians and other jobs where you are being asked to do things that are somewhat impossible, which is work as much as humanly possible, don't get any sleep, and then be completely focused and clear-headed. What I see is that stress is so overwhelming. And I noticed this especially in COVID, where there was really nothing left, meaning I'm so stressed, I'm just trying to survive. The other person, especially if there's two physicians that are married, which is often, I see that often, both people have nothing left. And so it's, squeezing, what do they say? Squeezing blood from rock, or I don't remember the phrase, but it is like that, where there's nothing left for that other person. So there's not a lot of grace, not a lot of pausing, taking time. So I see that quite often. And so one of the things we often talk about is, self-soothing, self-care. That was great. But there are things you can do in a relationship to help the other person self-soothe, or not self-soothe, to soothe each other, right? An example would be giving a little bit of a back rub, or a long hug, or just saying some words of affirmation like, you are the best. I love you. Thank you so much for making it through the day to come home to me. It just has to be honest. It doesn't have to be the best comment you could ever make in the world. It just has to be from your heart, So that is one thing that can be really helpful.
Yeah, and I know there's there's so many techniques that people can that a lot of effective communication strategies that the audience can use. So next question is talking about codependency and boundaries, and doctors also struggle with this because they can't say no, and then they usually have guilt and shame and people-pleasing tendencies, and when they say no. And so what is codependency? How does it impact relationship? And what are practical steps the audience can take to set healthy boundaries at work and also at home as well?
Great question. Great question. And I will always say it depends, and it depends on the person and that starting point. But that first step is really acknowledging that those boundaries are extremely important for not only you, but for the other person. So I'm going to highlight that it's actually good for both people. So what I mean by that is that if you aren't setting those boundaries, the other person doesn't really know where they are either. And that can be stressful. So even thinking about, if I ask this person for a favor, I know they're going to say yes, but they might be kind of cranky, or I know I'm kind of maybe asking too much, but they're not saying anything. So first and foremost, thinking about boundaries as a gift to give both people, and that clarity is kindness. It truly is. Where I think sometimes we get stuck is how we're saying it, you know? And usually if we're saying it in an angry, frustrated way, our boundaries have been crossed for quite some time before. So if you can do it sooner, that allows for just an overall better relationship. You think you nailed it when you said that the helping piece is what's really tricky. And there is that desire to help and to be there. And it's another thing I hear often is if I take that time off or if I call in sick, then the rest of my team has to take care of it. And yes, that is very true. So sometimes that can be a huge issue. But thinking about it in the way that, hey, if you rest today, then you're not going to have these more significant issues that take you out for much longer, which is something else that I'll see after a while is chronic illness or chronic fatigue or all these other things, insomnia. If you start working on these things today, take that time today to be well rested, to care for yourself, it really ultimately affects everybody in a better way. Your mood is better. What you're bringing to the table is better. Your interactions are better. And then thinking about that, how that actually impacts people in such a positive way, you just can't see all of it. You can't see all of like that butterfly effect, but that it is happening. The other thing I think can be helpful is thinking about other people can see that you're doing boundary work and that you are saying no to things. And that gives them courage also to do the same. And people will look up to you as this is what they are doing. And this, I respect them. I want to do that too. Right. So it might be a little bit of reframing what's actually helping. But yeah, that can definitely be an issue as far as wanting to make sure that you're taking care of everybody else and forgetting yourself.
Yeah, really great points. And one thing, how do you deal with the feelings of the guilt and shame, like when somebody asks you and like some people do it just by like not being around or not responding, but like, how do you just say confidently in a polite way and and kind of address these issues, like these emotional issues with guilt and shame when you do say no?
Yeah, that comes up quite often. And it might be really figuring out which one are you feeling, which I know is a pretty hot topic right now and has been for the last few years of what is shame, what is guilt. And I always just tell people really what guilt is meant for. It's a really great feeling to have, but it's really meant as our compass of did I do something that's against my belief system, right? And the shame piece comes from, do other people feel so negative about me that I am now in the out? So one's more of like an internal, what's my compass? What do I feel is right or wrong? And shame is more of like, I'm scared that I'm going to be shoved out and I might die. So it's very, very strong. And deciphering which is which, right? Is it that I actually am not abiding by my rules that I have for myself? So that would be one of the first things is check in with yourself there. Is it that you do believe that you want to put everybody else first? Because that can be true for somebody. So it might be a longer journey for that person to figure out, like, where that came from. What's happening with that? Where did you learn that? Because we all learned that from something, right? That's not innate. So to believe that we got to put everybody else first. Usually it's childhood stuff. To move through the guilt, again, is you ask that question. And if somebody's saying, yes, that didn't align with me, and you say, okay, that feeling is actually very important. So sit with it and experience it. And then you got to let it go because you're not going to learn anything from just that constant guilt feeling. It's meant to be there in a small amount. It's like, feel it, learn, move on. And that's the thing that can be really tricky is the moving on process where we might fixate on it. Like, okay, and you can ask yourself at that point, is there anything else I need to learn from this experience? If there's not, that's a good indication to let it go, right? Because all you're doing is replaying then the event, like rewatching a movie. Oh, you know all of the feelings, you know all of the steps. The rethinking of it is not going to change anything. All it is doing is giving you that feeling again and not necessarily helping, right? The shame piece, that's trickier because it feels as though something is wrong with you versus, oh, I made a mistake. And that also can be something more of a long-term progress, right? Of, okay, we got to work on your view of yourself, which, you know, there's some quick ways to get up from that. And sometimes people do that by blaming. So they might say, oh man, I feel like I'm a horrible, horrible person, but they forgot this, or they did this, or they said this, or they're kind of a jerk, or they'll do, there is a way to kind of pull yourself up from that by kind of like throwing that hot potato to somebody else. Not very effective though. Not very effective because it's not actually dissipating it. It's just putting that back onto somebody else, and they will usually put that back to you. So one of the things with shame would be recognizing, am I a bad person or did I make a mistake? Right. And then checking in with yourself of, what do I do with that feeling? And if it's passing it off, then you got to figure out how to go kind of in the middle. And that is by saying, hey, we are all the same. We are all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing. And once we put ourselves on like this equal playing field with everybody, that shame dissipates. You can't feel that then. And the other piece is empathy, right? So that kind of goes along with that. I understand why I did that. Maybe not the best choice, but I can give myself kindness and empathy. So long answer for that.
No, these are really important points. And the other thing is, while you were, I was thinking, because people say, they say a lot of the physicians, they think that we all have this arrival fallacy that one day, someday, or one day, it's like, and then when that point comes, it's like nothing we expected. So, it's like a huge letdown, and it's actually very depressing. So, and then there's this other fallacy, like, people are just kind of like, they'll be happy when, or they'll be happy if, and
Yeah.
there's this like, there's this lotto mentality in the culture. It's like,
Yeah.
if I win the lotto, I will be happy, or if I get this, and I'll be happy. And which is kind of, tying it back to forgiveness, is like, it sounds like forgiveness is not a single thing. It's like you have to, like, the first time it's, and letting go, if you can do it small, little bit by little bit, and then it's kind of like a muscle, and then you can sort of kind of feel these feelings of guilt and shame, and then you can recognize it, and you get better at letting it go. So that's just kind of but yeah.
Yeah, I do see that often. You're right. Like, I will be happy when, I will be happy if, even that idea of that question of, if I win the lottery, what do I do? Right. And getting honest with yourself with that answer to the question. Would you still be doing what you're doing? Right. And that should indicate to some degree if there needs to be a change. Right. And I do believe that everybody can have some joy from their work. It just might not be all of it. But if you do really feel like, I would just quit and just sit on a beach, I am guaranteeing you that isn't really what you would do. It sounds great. It sounds great for a month, maybe a week, maybe a full year. But at some point, your drive and your purpose is going to also create depression. And I see that too with people that are retired. That comes up of, oh, I identified myself as this, I'm not this. Now what am I doing? Just roaming around.
Yeah, really fascinating conversation, and we could have, further more contact you, check out your socials, follow you, reach out to you for help and work and so on.
Yeah, so I have a podcast out. It's been out for about 6 months now called Wisconsin Wellness Podcast. And so if you want to hear more, I do a lot of different interviews on all topics of wellness. Um, and if you want to reach out to see a therapist or a coach, you can go to shoresidetherapies.com. And you can also follow me on social media, and that would be Shoreside Therapies and Wisconsin Wellness.
Yeah, an awesome conversation. And for all the audience, be sure to like and follow Lori on her socials. All the links will be in the show notes. And thanks so much for a fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.